Deborah, with her 30 years of being an entrepreneur and creating over 7 companies, knows exactly what it means to accept the mission. When you make that decision, when you accept the mission to become a solopreneur, to take yourself and your talents to market, then you embrace a life of not only unlimited possibilities, but also the unknown. It's an elixir of fear and bravery that only someone who's taken the leap really understands. On our show, Deb digs deep with her guests to highlight what you, the listener, wants to know. The stories, the whys, and the hows to navigate the journey to success. Get ready to hear from some of the most incredible mission takers from Generation Z to Boomers. So sit up, perk up, and get ready to be blown away. Now here is your host, Deborah Drummond.
Hello, welcome back, Mission Accepted podcast listeners. You know that you guys are always my favorite. And I can say that today because no one here has a podcast. Thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for staying in touch. And thanks for just keeping this whole groovy project going. Because if you've been listening to us for a while, that Mission Accepted is about really creating this platform where people that are doing super cool things that might have decided to take the mission, got pushed into doing the mission, got talked into it late night at a pub. Hey, this sounds like a great idea kind of thing. Or had an epiphany and kind of decided to go for it. But if you take the mission, congratulations. If you're here trying to find some courage to take yours, absolutely, you come to the right place. And if you're just thought, Mission Accepted podcast, what are these people about? You're also in the right place. And if you are a listener, you know how much we care about you and appreciate you. Not only are you amazing, but I'd say you're one of the most collaborative audiences in the podcast circuit, and you're going to find out why. So clearly, if you're watching us instead of listening to us, you see multiple people on the screen today. And normally we have one guest, but if there's multiple, there's probably a reason why. There's some other cool people on here that have taken the vision. You see Ocean here, so it's going to be one of those super cool collaborative what's going on in this next generation entrepreneurship. And I want to introduce you to this cool crew that I'm with today. So you've got Kadine Cooper, who happens to be the Momager or the Momager. There's all sorts of names over Prezi, and Prezi is amazing creative. Isn't it funny? I don't know. How does that work? Where all of these really cool parents have this really cool next level of generational creativity that are making their way in the world. So Prezi's here with us. And then of course we have Ocean, who's just launched his clothing line. You've got Prezi, who's absolutely a creative. I'm going to let him tell you what he does. And then you've got Kadine as well, who happens to as well be an entrepreneur mom. So welcome everybody to the party today.
Thanks, Deb, for having us. This is awesome.
Nice
intro. I love it.
Absolutely. So look, let's start up a little bit talking to the audience about, a lot of people know what makes me tick and what's behind the scene of becoming an entrepreneur and all that good stuff. And they've also heard Ocean a couple of times. So we'll throw him in the mix a little bit. Well, why don't you guys talk? Because we were doing a little pre-show conversation, and there's always this assumption, right? There's this assumption that if there's this entrepreneurial family, that the kids were raised with entrepreneurs from the time that they all worked at the restaurant together or whatever they were doing. But you guys got an interesting story where you guys both kind of got the entrepreneurship bug at the same time. So I don't know who wants to take the lead on that story, but maybe if you guys can share with us what was behind each of you, could have been something different. What was behind you guys, stepping into the world of entrepreneurship?
Well, I don't mind starting because then I don't know if that's what kind of inspired Khalil, but I think he probably even had the bug a little bit before me. So we have quite a few entrepreneurs in our family. But for me personally, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. I always thought I would be working for someone. And then in 2019, I decided to quit my job, and it wasn't something that I did. It may have looked like it was like instantaneously, but it was something that I was, I think, kind of pruning myself for, not as an entrepreneur, but just to make a shift or a pivot in my career. And so in 2019, quit my job, invested in myself personally and professionally, and something that I highly recommend anyone do. And it was that kind of push and motivation with the support of a coach that I now feel leaps and bounds ahead in my career and my life. And that's what I think kind of catapulted me into this current journey that I'm in for the last 4 years. And I'm honestly like, Deb, why didn't I do this sooner?
Well, there you go. That's a great, that's a great t-shirt. There you go. Should make that one, what hashtag, why didn't I do this sooner? Right. I think
Yeah.
we talk about that in the different play of entrepreneurship. It's like a lot of times people have really thought about it for a long time. And then there's a podcast they go on to, or there's a book that I always say there's a book that falls in front of them, or there's a line in a movie. And it's like you hear that line and it's the pivotal point that goes, okay, enough already. And then there's the people that just jump off the cliff because their friends said it and let's do it together. There's that story too, right? But that's a great one. You'll have to do a song on that, Prizzy. You'll have to call, should have done it sooner. So tell us your story a little bit.
Well, kind of just to piggyback off of my mom, I guess you could say in the sense of the where things had kind of started. My mom kind of, I guess you could say, was the first person within my immediate family to start the entrepreneurial journey. And then me kind of graduating from school during the pandemic, which is a very trying time for a lot of people. So during that period, I did a lot of self-reflecting, and I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I've always had this dream to pursue music, and I felt that I did a lot of the things that, the society that always tries to push on us in terms of, getting your education, making sure you get that, and then anything else afterwards is up for grabs. So once I did that, I felt like, okay, I still had this itch that was telling me that you did everything else that was everybody was expecting you to do, but you didn't give your dream or your passion a try. So once I seen kind of how the direction of the uncertainty that the pandemic caused, it made me do a lot of self-reflecting and just saying, well, if not now, then when? So that was kind of the big leap that I took in 2020, where I was able to, just say, I'm going to give it a try despite what's happening in the world. So 2020, I was able to put out my first song. And since then, I've just been gunning for it and just making sure that nothing really is holding me back other than myself. And then seeing my mom, kind of taking the first step and saying that, what, this is the time where I'm going to put myself first in the sense of making something happen for myself. So I feel like a lot of the subconscious decisions that I've made kind of stem from her decisions, and just even watching how far that she's come from the corporate side of things to now transitioning to her being her own boss. I think it's definitely super inspiring. So that's kind of the foot that I'm leading with right now.
That's very cool. Thank you so much. And Ocean, not everybody's heard your story. We've been on a couple of times with some really cool people talking about this generational entrepreneurship thing that honestly is waves. Like Kadine, I don't know if you're having that experience, but
Oh yeah.
as soon as, so even at Ocean's launch that just happened, I had a whole bunch of women call me after and they're like, my kid's 10, my kid's 12, my kid's 11, my kid's 9, my kid's 13. Like, I'm so like, hey, how did you do it? What did you do? And I'm like, even me and my CMO were talking this week. We're like, okay, we got to incorporate this. Like maybe we got to do a separate YouTube channel for it. But there's this huge wave of allowance, right? That we probably didn't have so much, maybe a little bit generationally different. So Ocean, what about you? What made you decide to jump into the entrepreneurial pool?
I've always wanted to do it when I was younger because I was always a big sneakerhead, and sneakers and streetwear always went together. And so I always see like everywhere and like having everyone having their own line, and it was just like stuck with me. So I wanted to even learn how to make sneakers. So we waited, what was it, a couple of years. I asked the mom if I could. There's a guy called Shoe Surgeon, and I wanted to go like the straight year, but it was like mom was like, "We'll hold it off and see, maybe it gets cheaper or something, or see how it goes." Because it was expensive classes going down to LA and then the whole everything, so it was already expensive, but it kept going up and up, and so we went, and mom always told me like, "Let's hold off a little bit and see if you really like it," and so it's always been there, and I've always wanted to do my own thing. I'm a little stubborn, so I don't like when people tell me what to do. So that was another big reason. But having my own, like, always thinking about like having your own free will and being creative with it and having your own designs and like artwork and all that stuff. I always wanted to do that. So it's always been in there. And then mom helped me make it into an actual brand and actually fully succeed in it now. So we've been doing like the first live. It's and seeing people wear clothes, it's like that you made. It's insane to see. Like seeing other people wear it is crazy to me.
Well, I
That's
think,
awesome.
thanks, Ishan. I think that, I mean, it was very different for me. It's funny, Prezi, because I came from the music industry.
Hmm.
And I was like, I kind of hit a wall, and I kind of had my moment. And then I went into an industry. I fell in love with the holistic health sciences, and I went that route. And there wasn't even anywhere for me to go get a job because holistic health wasn't like super cool and groovy, 25, 30 years ago. So I kind of became my own practitioner and started it that way. And I think a lot of people break into a ground or break into an industry and there really isn't anywhere for them to go. So they have to they have to carve their own path a little bit. So it's really interesting how we all kind of have our own thing. And ironically, creativity is a big part of it. So Kadine, you are probably the most recent that's gone from, this corporate world. So what's it like now to have like, Ocean's got this, full disclosure kind of way of thinking like, hey, I just want to make my own way. And Prezi's also seriously creative and is able to, I mean, he's creating his own music, right? And so what was it like for you? What was the transition? I know it's exciting now, but jumping off that cliff or making that decision, coming from something that's pretty, safe and secure and a little cushy.
Yeah.
And look at your family, right? We
Yeah.
know that we've got, we've got bills, we've got mortgages, we've got rents, we've got foods. It's a different decision-making process, I think, when you've got people that are relying upon you.
Yeah, definitely. So I think for me, it was I had a bit of a cushion. Like I knew once I made that decision, I'd be okay for at least 2 to 3 months to kind of take a step back to kind of reset and figure out how I wanted to move forward. One of the biggest challenges or learnings for me was not because you can means that you should. So in the corporate world, I was known as this, C-suite, senior level executive. Um, and it was like, okay, how do I make that pivot or transition to rebranding myself? So I would get opportunities. So after I made the decision to leave, I would get offers and opportunities to go back into the role of like recruitment and HR. And it was hard for me sometimes to say no to it because I was like family, mortgage, all of those things. So I did. I went into it, left, went back into it, but soon realized that it wasn't serving me, that I was clearly not fully invested in my true dream and passion to do my own thing, to start my own practice. So I learned quickly that not because I can do something means that I should do it. And so now I'm very clear on my values and kind of what I want to do moving forward and how I want to show up. So it definitely took some, ebbs and flows and stuff to get clear on it. But I'm glad that I went through that process because now I know definitely when I say yes to something, it's a yes. And when I say no to it, it's a no.
Yeah. Prezi, maybe talk a little more about what you do, because obviously, you just mentioned that, a song. So maybe you share with our audience, are you a songwriter? Do you sing? Like, what's your passion? What have you turned into your own business here?
I feel like being a musician, you kind of by default end up wearing multiple hats. I feel like even Ocean can attest to this as well in terms of when you're running your own business, or just a creative in general. So for me, I'm primarily an artist. I'm a vocalist that specializes in hip hop and R&B. But when it comes to the behind the scenes or putting things together, I'm the creative director. I'm the storyboarder. I'm my own stylist. I'm maybe even the co-director in terms of, let's say, the visuals and how things play out in that sense. So I'm pretty much doing everything under the sun in terms of when it comes to a final product, when it's either from a song perspective or if it's the visual aspect, just playing all the roles and having a say in everything that happens. So yeah, I can't say that I'm just one of just an artist. I can say that I'm just a creative. So I think that's a very broad term, but it definitely encapsulates everything that is under the sun in terms of the artistry that I'm in.
Absolutely. I think Ocean touched on it a little bit. So when people hear about people taking the lead, particularly coming from a bit of a creative, which, you are both from, but entrepreneurship has its own creative game, right?
Yeah.
It's its own creative game. And I think you just nailed it about how many hats you wear. And there's I have an idea, whether you're a baker or an accountant or whatever, you're a singer, you're a, fashion designer, right? Coach, whatever it is that you're doing, there's that piece. And then there's the piece where you're super passionate or you're super good, right? Like you're super good, you're super grooving. And then there's the piece about, but you got to make it a business and learn about business. And right. So I got to ask, because the cool thing is not every interview we do has like entrepreneurial parents and entrepreneurial kids. Like, is there anything that you've watched and look at, this is open game here? Like, is there anything that you've watched that you're like, that's not something that I think I would do, and or that's something that I'm really going to do, that you've learned from your mom being an entrepreneur?
I guess you could say from the marketing standpoint, or even I guess you could say the financial aspect of certain things. So given the fact that, let's say if you have a specific project that you're trying to put out, me personally, I've never been as strong in, I guess you could say, number crunching and financials in that sense. But when it comes to, let's say you're putting out a project or you have a big idea, you got to make sure that you're budgeting yourself and you're keeping yourself accountable in that sense. So I feel like, kind of having the mentality of not wanting to put myself through that type of stress, of having to look at the numbers, or just thinking, okay, I just want to do this, this, and this, and whatever the cost is, I'll just figure it out when I get the chance to. But I think being organized is definitely a key factor, and that's one thing that I could say that about myself that I've always been able to utilize as a skill, as a strong suit. Yeah, so I definitely say, the financial side of thing. In terms of marketing, you want to make sure that you know who your target audience is. So I feel like, yeah, you want everybody to listen to your music, but you got to understand as well that not everybody is going to like your music. So you got to find who it is that you want to target your music to, so that way you're capitalizing on, you're finding your crowd, so to speak. That's really what it's all about. So I think even my mom, she can attest to that as well. In terms of when you're first starting out, you're trying to get as much exposure as you can. You want everybody to look at you. And then as you go and you grow, you realize you got to take a step back and say, okay, these are actually my type of people. These people might support me, but they're not my core foundation of who I can say that every single time that I put something out, I already know without a doubt that they're going to be gravitating towards it. So I think definitely making sure that you're marketing yourself and putting yourself in the right spaces is definitely something that I've learned, and I've always heard my mom stress about, is making sure, you're connecting with the right people. Be around the people who support you and who are going to uplift you, whether that's, family, friends, or even just your crowd, just your audience.
Awesome. And so I'm just going to pretend I'm not your mom, Ocean, and I'm going to kind of throw the same questions. So what have you learned from your entrepreneurial family, and what don't you like? And we're not in the same location right now, so you're safe. But, what are the things that kind of you come up against that's been an advantage, and maybe something that you've had to kind of stand your own on?
Things I've learned throughout this process is, I guess, speaking is very important. I'm not the best speaker, and it's hard for me to kind of tell what I'm talking about. But I think speaking, and yeah, like what Pressy said, like crunching down the numbers, that's not my strong suit. It's hard for me to think about all those little things, but all the tiny little details that go into everything, like even the website, your team, the stitching. I mean, like I learned how to make clothes, so in the future, definitely we'll be doing more custom stuff. But even before that, like all the little things, I didn't realize how much like details there is into this. Even, I mean, setting up for the event, we prepared that for months in advance, and that was still like the day before. We're still like, I got my cousin, and he was cutting out the stickers and all those little things. So, I mean, it's a process. It always takes time, but I think I have fun so far with it. The journey's been cool. I think it's always worth it at the end to see how it ends up and how people like it. And even if some people don't like it, it's still you like it at the end of the day, which is I think the most important because it's your product, it's your like music or your clothing or it's up to you. So I like this so far. I'm glad I made this decision.
So we talked earlier, we were talking to the audience and telling them that they're the most collaborative audience. And, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and there was a time in the world of entrepreneurship that the understanding of collaboration wasn't really there. I don't even think in the corporate world, collaboration was really there. It was kind of pitted, right? Like if you were in the same industry, it was like kind of you against them, or what's our competitor doing? What's our competitor doing? That's, tested against competitor. I mean, I think we all remember, well, maybe you guys don't, but Kadine, sister. So it's like they have these commercials, right? And it'd be like, do you like Pepsi or do you like Coke? Right. And they do this like live thing where people compete, and it was really competitive. And I think really it was your guys' industry that really, like your guys' generation, that next generation that was like, let's collab, let's collab, let's collab. And then you saw brands really collaborating. And it was a big part of, women's networking groups and this kind of thing where we would support each other doing what they were doing. But the sense of collaboration's really come in strong in the last 5-6 years. So I'd ask Dean, let's talk a little bit about collaboration, because, here's a cool thing. So we met during the time where, people met online, right? We just kind of the world just went through this little bit of a health crisis. And so we met online and we're like, oh man, our kids are super cool, and they're both in the same vein, and they both, and we automatically go to a place of collaboration now. That's how things have really changed, right? And so maybe talk a little bit about how collaboration from, where you are in your business, we know where it is and these guys can talk about it, but how's it benefited you? Or how has it been an interesting way of doing business for you? Or talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think especially being an entrepreneur, you need community, right? We need each other, because I think it was Jeff Bezos that said it's what people say about you when you're not in the room. That's what's important, or that's when it counts, right? So I've been fortunate enough to meet individuals like yourself. I mean, we actually met first, I think, at Revolution Her a year or two ago. That's where we met, and then we reconnected online. But it's these conversations with other women and just letting them know what I'm doing, who I am, and what I'm about. That I always say it's collaboration over competition, because I can't take from you, Deb, and you can't take from me. You know what I mean? Like what's for you is for you. And so just having that mindset and mentality, I think, has served me really well, because I'm all about how can I support you? How can I serve you? And just knowing that at some way, shape, or form, it'll come back to me. Right. And my grandmother had a saying that if it doesn't, my background's Jamaican. So she'd say, if it doesn't catch me, it'll catch my children or my children's children. So I've always just been a strong believer that whenever you do good or put good out there, it's going to come back. And if not for you specifically, to those that are closest to you, right? Especially if you have children, right? So for me, collaboration is huge. I love to collaborate with them because I get to learn too from different people, different perspectives, and get different flavors. So I think it's the best way, whether you're an artist, creative, or anything, because you only know what you know. And when you're collaborating with other people, you can get a different perspective, different spin on things, and broaden your audience and your reach as well too. So
yeah,
not a bad thing.
Absolutely. And Prezi, you talked a bit about that. You talked about the people around you, right? Like the people around you, and that they make impression upon they make impression upon us, even if we say it in our world. It's like who you hanging out with. That includes movies, music, books, whatever is making an impression upon you. It doesn't have to be someone standing in the same room, but whose words are you listening to? What impression are you, what are you letting the world impress upon you, right? So what's your thoughts on collaboration? And it's part of your industry for sure, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from the very jump, when it comes to the as far as the music industry goes, like let's say if you're in the studio, like, and you're the artist who's going behind the mic, you're already collaborating with the engineer. So the engineer is probably going to be giving you feedback in terms of like, okay, maybe you should try this type of pitch range, or you need to be a little bit louder, or stand back from the mic, or stand closer. So I feel like already from the very beginning of, at least from my career, I've had to collaborate and hear different feedback from different types of music experts, whether it's from the engineer or the producer, even when it comes down to collaborating, let's say, with other artists. Even you're now intertwining yourself in terms of what your own sound is with somebody else's vision, and you kind of have to bounce each other's ideas off of one another, seeing kind of like what works, what doesn't work, or even just looking at things from a different lens overall. Somebody might, let's say, for example, there's been times where I maybe have written something that I was maybe intending to say, but it would sound better coming from somebody else, and maybe vice versa. So I think just being open to always having an ear about what can change or what could come to play is super important. And even when it comes to, let's say, even movies or from a director standpoint, I'm not really, let's say, I'm not really too nifty with the camera, but I can definitely say that I have a way of like seeing how a shot could be done or how we could get a certain angle. And then I'll give my feedback or my 2 cents in that regard. And then maybe the director says, yeah, that's a good idea. And then we can also try this and we try that. So it's like a snowball effect. You throw out an idea, I throw out an idea, now we bring it together. And that just kind of stems a whole different idea from what it initially came out from.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
just collaboration overall, like it's in everything.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And Ocean, you're in fashion, you're in streetwear. Where's collaboration showing up in your industry?
It's like everything is a collaboration at this point. I was literally just looking earlier today for these like New Balance collab. It's I think I don't think I could say it better than they did, but it's a collaboration is everything because yeah, you're putting two minds together to make one product, one outcome. So you got two different thoughts and you got two different perspectives, but one style could be completely different than the other. But I think it's a very good thing because you work with new people and you meet new people and you come up with something that you might have not, and they might have, other person might not like it. And so I think it's very good to have collaboration with people and what they work with, especially. So I think a collaboration is everything at this point in life, like day and age. So
Well, and I think that, thanks, Ocean. I think that for anyone who follows the Napoleon Hill Think and Go Rich, if you haven't read that 1,000 times, or if you haven't been told to read it 1,000 times, you'll read it 1,000 times. And there's a really powerful chapter. I mean, and how old is that book? Like that book is that's not fresh off the press by any sense. And it's just the power of, it's like when two minds get together, like it or not like it, it creates a third mind.
Yeah.
Like that's just the energy and the essence of what happens. And so again, Prezi, I just love what you said about just like being really clear with who you're playing with, right? Being clear with who you're playing with. So look, I know that we're going to be seeing each other soon. We're doing a collaboration, right? And I love that we're all going to be in the same room. I think that's just, there's nothing better. And there's this really cool photo shoot that's going to happen with Ocean's clothing, and then supporting, like, you guys having the clothing and us supporting your music, and me and Kadine doing what we do on the side with 262 and all the groovy stuff that's going on there. And it just makes for such a powerful impact. And I think, even when you're looking at aligning with brands, right? So like Ocean for his opening had a, alcohol sponsor, and looking at through that lens that you talked about, Prezi, it's like, so what's their mission? What's their message? Does it match our mission? Does it match our message? Is it completely different? Like what brings it together? What's that piece so that both brands benefit from the experience and it's not confusing for the consumer to see? So look, I'm a huge believer in putting it out there, And I could tell you story after story after story. I think it's really important to tell the world what it is that you're looking for, what your next step is, or what you're wanting. So I'll start with your mom, but hey, like if all dreams came true, by the end of the day, what is it that you want the world to know? Like, tell people where to go see you, tell them what to listen to, like, what is it that you would like for your business right now? And let's put it out there and let's see it reverberate. So Kadine, let's start with you.
So for me, and thank you so much for asking, because I'm on this I'm in the stage right now where I'm trying to figure out what do I really want 2024 to look like, right? And being intentional about it. So for me, it's to be able to speak on global stages, whether it's virtually or in person, because I really want to help women go from the mundane to the magic of showing up unapologetically in their life. So if anyone's hosting or looking for a speaker, motivational, encouraging, inspiring speaker, would love, love, love to share a platform, whether a moderator, speaker, or a host, just facilitate that conversation, just to pour into women, I think is so needed right now. So that's kind of, I think, what I'm looking for more of, other than my coaching.
All right, so world stages. And Ocean, what about you? If you could have all the dreams come true right now, what would you want people to do?
Honestly, just I don't know. It's a hard one to think
Well,
about.
as your momager, you did just launch a website and you did just launch
Oh,
a Patreon page. So you might want to tell them to go there.
yeah, I mean, definitely check the Patreon and website for sure. The Patreon, they could start from $3 a month, and with that comes exclusive little items, things like that. It's a good way to help support my brand and support it getting out there. And then it's called Natsukashi Inc. So it's spelled out as NATSUKASHII, and an ink is INK.
Cool.
Check out the website.
All right. And so, and plus Kadine stuff's going to be there and Ocean stuff's going to be there in Prezi.
Yeah, so I guess you could say kind of for me, in terms of the impact overall that I want to leave with people is just for anybody who has a dream to just go ahead and chase that dream. Like it's not gonna come easy, it's not gonna come overnight, but if you got something that's been itching you for the longest time to tell you to give it a try just because you know you haven't given the opportunity or the environment for it to grow, do that. Just never stop believing in your dream just because somebody else says that you can't do it or it's too late or you're too young or whatever the case might be. You got to block out that noise and just fully immerse yourself in your craft. So for me, at the top of this of 2023, I had released a song called Endless Grind. And I think since releasing that song, it really solidified the foundation for me as an artist in terms of the impact and the message that I want to spread to my audience as well as the general public, which is just hard work and dedication. Everything that we do, I feel like everybody only sees the end result of what it is that came to be, but nobody gets to see the blood, sweat, and tears. And there's a lot that goes into it. I feel like for any entrepreneur, there's the sleepless nights that nobody gets to see, but they're just like, oh man, I love this or I love that, but they don't know that I stayed up or I haven't slept since maybe the last time that they seen me. So for me, in terms of I guess just what I want to let people know is just keep going hard, just keep grinding. You're gonna reap the fruits of your labor at some point. It may not be now, but when you do, it's gonna be the best feeling. But at the end of the day, you just gotta keep going and put your best foot forward and know that you're on the right track.
Very
So
cool.
I say I'm going to pull a momager too, Doug.
Ooh, I love it. That's a new trend. #10, pull a momager.
Yeah, I'm going to pull momager. So what would you love though? Do you not want people to follow your music on Spotify, follow you on
Absolutely.
IG?
So if
I love it. This is in action, people. This is the stuff behind the door.
well, just like my mom, just like she said, yeah, in terms of, you know, anybody who's looking to, I guess you could say, have inspiration in terms of where to look for pushing that endless grind. On Instagram, that's my main platform and that I use on social media. So you can follow me at the Don Prezi, TheDonPresi. And I'm on all streaming platforms. So if you're on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, you can just search my name, Prezi, Prezi spelled PRE, $I, and you can check out all my music that's out.
And if you're looking to, book someone for an opening act or, headliner, just, holler at Prezi.
Yeah, absolutely. All my
All right, so Prezi's agent is on, and we're gonna put her. No. This is perfect. I think this is actually excellent because people ask, and I just talked with my CMO, and we're like, I'm gonna be spending some time this year helping in this arena, right? Of this multi-entrepreneurship, but this is the stuff that happens when you get, like, when the podcast is over, or when the interview's over, or when the meeting's done, and it's that collaboration with each other where that's where the learning happens, right? Hey, you didn't say this, or hey, you could say this, and then Prezi gets to come back and say, I didn't want to say that, and you're like, okay, how does that work, right? Like, how are those dynamics after? But definitely opening act, closing act. If you want to, you got it. All right. So look, you guys, thank you so much for being the very cool audience, and thank you so much for being cool guests on Mission Accepted podcast, and to throw my hat in the ring with these incredible people. Really 2024, who knows when you're listening to this podcast, because we're really good at marketing. You could be listening to it in the end of 2024, but going into the new year, it always makes you think, who am I going to be next year? What is it that I want to accomplish next year? What does next year have unfold? Because we have our agenda, and then somehow the universe can make it its own agenda, and that gets funky as well. There's that grit and grind and patience that Prezi talked about, but I think going forward this year, much like Kadine and hitting the world stage and sharing, we share on two different things, but I love this. Like, I love getting into the heart of it. So my specialty, my audience knows, is top performance. And so I just want to do some more top performance work with people that are like frustrated, up against themselves, don't know how to activate a powerful marketing plan or whatever it is, just to work with people in that top performance, because there's nothing more painful than being in pain as an entrepreneur. There's nothing more painful than knowing you've got like a shining star, you have goals, you have this, and the swim can get really, like, the treading water can get brutal. So I just want to be able to pick people up and put them on the dock and let's go, right? So my whole thing is top performing people's dreams. So we've all got some things out there now. You know why we're all collaborating. And I really thank you, Ocean, for coming on. natsukashiinc.com. Prezi, look them up on Instagram, Spotify. Kadine Cooper. Kadine Cooper is also with the 262 Project, where we're platforming over 400 women doing their thing in solidarity for International Women's Day for women and those that support women. So thank you for being incredible listeners and sharing this. We will send some pictures of us getting together live. So with that, you guys, thank you so much. Oh, I know, I can hear my other voice. I can hear my other voice before we end. Dun, dun, dun. I can hear my other voice. If you want to know who that is, it's Dorothea. She's in my head. And Dorothea is screaming at me right now going, you are not ending this podcast. My listeners are screaming, you're not ending this podcast, because there's a question that I haven't asked all of you. And Prezi, this one's going to be super tough for you. So I'm going to start with your mom. And don't make it difficult. It's the first one that comes to your mind. And here it is. Ta-da! We are all going on a desert island individually. You're all going to your own island. We're not going to the same one. And you are packing your suitcase, and you have room in your suitcase. Kadine knows, she knows it's coming. One album. You get to take one album in that suitcase to that private island that you could not imagine listening to for the rest of your life. So I'm going to ask Kadine, what would that album be?
Oh my gosh, it would be probably My Life, Mary J. Blige.
All right. Prezi?
I would have to say I'm gonna take it back to my childhood. So just a little background. I remember, like, when I was 7 years old, my mom, she took me to HMV. I know that doesn't exist anymore, but she had taken me there, and I bought my first two CDs. It was a reggae CD, TOK, and the other one was Bow Wow, Wanted. So I'd have to say I'd probably go with Bow Wow, Wanted, because I listened to that CD throughout, like, my early ages of growing up until even now. So I feel like that's a timeless album for me that's always stuck with me. So I have to say I got to go with that one.
All right. I'm loving these island parties. And Ocean?
I've been listening to this a lot lately, but Get Rich or Die Tryin by 50 Cent. I've been grinding. That's the album recently.
All right, and I'll throw my ring in the hat. Should we surprise everybody and say Janis Joplin Pearl? But how about this? How about this? There's a song that I absolutely love. It was the first 45 that I ever got as a gift. It was a Christmas gift from my brother, and it was Dream Weaver by Gary Wright. So there you go. We're gonna throw that in. Thank you so much for being an awesome, cool entrepreneurial audience today. Thank you guys for always being the best audience. And until we meet again, be well and stay groovy. Bye for now.